There are moments in life when the weight of injustice feels unbearable. You gave your heart, your loyalty, your kindness. Yet what you received in return was betrayal, ridicule, or silence. The very people you trusted became the very hands that pressed upon your wounds, and while the world told you to move on, your spirit whispered questions in the dark. Does anyone see? Does anyone care? Will justice ever come? These questions echo in the hearts of the broken. For it is not simply the pain of betrayal that hurts, but the silence that follows. The silence when wrongdoers walk free while you carry the scars. The silence when cruelty is celebrated and kindness is mocked. And yet, my friend, the silence is not empty. It is the quiet before God's voice speaks. It is the pause before justice rolls down like mighty waters. We live in a world where people often mistake delay for denial. They think because consequences do not strike immediately, they never will. But do not be deceived. God is neither blind nor indifferent. He has seen every tear, every night you could not sleep, every moment you were misunderstood, and He has written it all in His book. The same people who caused your pain will one day stand before the justice of the One, who cannot be bribed, cannot be deceived, and cannot be mocked. Think of Joseph, cast into a pit by his brothers. They thought their cruelty was hidden. But the God who allowed Joseph's suffering turned that very betrayal into the stage for his exaltation. Years later, the same brothers who wounded him were forced to stand before him in hunger, humbled by the very hand they had tried to destroy. That is the God we serve, a God who does not forget, a God who redeems pain into purpose, and a God who brings justice, not in shadows, but in the open where all can see. Justice in God's hands is never petty revenge. It is holy correction. It is the restoration of balance, the lifting up of the humble and the bringing low of the arrogant. Those who mocked you will one day marvel at the way God raises you. Those who thought they had the last word will discover that God always speaks last. So, when you feel forgotten, remind yourself, God's timing is perfect. His justice does not arrive late, nor does it fail to find the guilty. The very people who broke you will become witnesses of how God heals and restores you. The same mouths that spread lies will be silenced by the truth of your testimony. Your task is not to seek vengeance. That burden is too heavy for human shoulders. Leave it to the One who judges with righteousness. Your task is to trust, to keep walking, to let God fight battles your hands were never meant to fight. The throne of justice belongs to Him, and He never abdicates His rule. There is a peculiar kind of pain that the human heart endures when the world refuses to see its wounds. You know this pain well. It is the quiet ache of being misunderstood, dismissed, or betrayed by those who should have protected you. Sometimes the cruelty is not in loud words, but in the silence of neglect, the turning away of faces, the absence of comfort when comfort was all you longed for. These are the hidden wounds, the ones no one applauds you for surviving because they do not even know you carry them. But here is the truth you must never forget. God has seen them. He has counted every tear that slipped silently from your eyes. The nights when your pillow carried your sorrow instead of a friend's shoulder, He was there. The moments when you forced a smile in public but broke down in private, He was watching, and not with the cold indifference of a distant deity, but with the tender eyes of a father who refuses to overlook the suffering of his child. The human heart often wonders, if God sees, why does He not act immediately? But divine sight is not idle. God sees not only what happened to you, but also the end of the story. He is the author, and in His book, the unjust are never left unchallenged. The delay is not His forgetfulness, It is his strategy. He waits until the stage is set, until your enemies have written their own testimony of arrogance, and then he brings justice in a way that no one can deny. Think of Hagar in the wilderness, abandoned and mistreated. She named God El Roi, the God who sees me. Why? Because in her loneliness, in her rejection, she discovered that divine eyes are never blind. If God could see a forsaken servant girl in the desert, do you really think he has missed the pain carved into your spirit by those who wounded you? He has seen it all, even the parts you have hidden from yourself. And this is what should give you rest. Nothing inflicted on you will remain unanswered. Every insult, every betrayal, every act of cruelty has been recorded by the judge of all the earth. The people who thought they got away with it, who laughed as they caused harm, who dismissed your worth, none of them escaped his notice. They may have fooled others with their charm, their excuses, or their lies, but they cannot deceive the one who searches hearts and weighs motives. Consider the hidden wound of Joseph again. His brother's betrayal was not seen by the world. No witness carried the report to Pharaoh. But God saw. And in time he arranged circumstances so that justice and restoration unfolded before the very eyes of those who had caused the wound. What was done in secret was answered in the open. That is how God works. He heals the hidden wound by exposing it to his light, not to shame you, but to shame those who thought your pain would remain invisible. This means your healing does not depend on people recognizing your worth or apologizing for their cruelty. Some may never admit what they did. Some may carry on as if nothing happened, but your peace does not rest on their confession. It rests on God's vision. The same God who saw you in your brokenness will see to it that justice comes in its fullness. And when it does, it will not be partial or uncertain. It will be whole, undeniable, and perfect. So let your heart take comfort. Every hidden wound has already been seen by the one who loves you. Every scar has already been counted as precious in his sight, and every injustice has already been scheduled for response in his perfect timing. One of the hardest lessons for the human heart to learn is patience in the face of injustice. When someone wounds you, mocks you, or betrays you, everything within you cries for immediate resolution. You want to see them corrected today, not tomorrow. You want the scales balanced now, not in some distant season. And when it doesn't happen, a dangerous whisper begins to creep into your spirit. Has God forgotten me? Has he allowed them to win? But justice in the hands of God is never absent. It is simply ripening. The delay is not a sign of denial. It is a sign of perfection. God is not a hurried judge, swayed by emotion or pressured by time. He is the eternal one who sees the end from the beginning, and when he acts, his justice is flawless. Think of a fruit on the branch. Plucked too soon, it is bitter and hard. Left in its season, it becomes sweet, nourishing, and full of life. The justice of God works the same way. If he answered too quickly, the lesson would not be complete. The arrogance of the wicked would not have revealed itself fully. The depth of your growth would not have been accomplished. But in waiting, both you and your adversaries write the testimony that will one day be read aloud in the presence of all. Consider David as he fled from King Saul. For years he was hunted, slandered, and betrayed. At any moment God could have removed Saul from the throne, but he did not. Why? Because David was not only waiting for justice, he was being prepared for kingship. The delay refined him, humbled him, and taught him to trust not in vengeance, but in divine providence. And when God finally acted, the justice was undeniable. Saul's reign crumbled, and David rose, not by his own hand, but by the hand of God. This is why you must not mistake silence for absence. God's delay is not an empty pause. It is the deliberate stroke of an artist who waits until the canvas is ready for his masterpiece. He is aligning circumstances, exposing hearts, and preparing the perfect moment for his justice to unfold. If he were to act at your first cry, the picture would be incomplete. But when he acts in his timing, it will be so complete that no one will be able to deny it was his hand. And here is something else to ponder. Often, the delay is not only about you, but about them. God is merciful even to your enemies, giving them space to repent, to turn, to reconsider their actions. He allows them time to write their own story of pride, so that when justice finally falls, it is not rushed, but righteous. The very delay that frustrates you now is also the evidence of his wisdom, ensuring that his judgment is final and beyond dispute. So take courage in the waiting. Do not let the passing of time convince you that justice has been abandoned. Picture the seed beneath the soil. To the eye it seems dormant, forgotten, lifeless. But within, unseen, roots are growing, foundations are being laid. When the time is right, it breaks forth with undeniable strength. That is how the justice of God operates. Hidden, patient, inevitable. And when it comes not as a whisper but as a declaration. Justice delayed is not justice denied. It is justice perfected, polished by time, sharpened by wisdom, and delivered in a way that even those who opposed you will be forced to acknowledge. Pain, by its very nature, feels meaningless when we are in the midst of it. The betrayal that pierces your heart, the words that cut deeper than any blade, the loneliness that settles in after you've been abandoned. None of these moments feel like they are building anything. They feel destructive, not constructive. You may have asked yourself in those quiet, anguished moments, "Why, God? Why did you let me go through this?" But what if I told you that the very place of your deepest wound is the place where God is preparing to lift you? What if the betrayal that broke you is the same betrayal that will one day become the stage where God's glory in your life is revealed? Pain in his hands is never wasted. It becomes the raw material for restoration, the dark soil from which a new and brighter future springs forth. Think of the story of Job. His pain was unimaginable. He lost his wealth, his family, his health, and even the comfort of his friends. To anyone watching, his life appeared ruined, his name tarnished, his future erased. Yet, what happened? That same pain became the platform for God's restoration. Out of the ashes of his despair, God raised him to a place of double blessing. What seemed like the end of Job's story was actually the preparation for his greatest chapter. And this is what you must hold in your heart. Your pain is not the conclusion, it is the preparation. Every tear you have shed, every heartbreak you have endured, every sleepless night you have survived, has been shaping you, refining you, and deepening your spirit. Pain carves a hollow space in the heart, and into that hollow God pours his strength, his wisdom, and his favor. The very emptiness left by your suffering becomes the space for his abundance. It is a paradox, but it is the way of God. He takes what was meant to destroy you and transforms it into the very thing that elevates you. The betrayal that tried to silence your voice gives you a testimony that cannot be denied. The rejection that sought to bury you becomes the reason God exalts you. The loss that was supposed to end you becomes the foundation upon which your new season of blessing is built. Consider Joseph once more. Sold as a slave, falsely accused, thrown into prison. Every step of his journey was painful, humiliating, unjust. And yet, when the time came, it was those very wounds that prepared him to stand before Pharaoh. Had he never been betrayed, he would never have been in Egypt. Had he never been imprisoned, he would never have interpreted dreams that positioned him for greatness. The pain that seemed senseless at the time was, in fact, the platform upon which God raised him to power. So when you look at your own pain, dare to believe it has purpose. Do not waste your suffering in bitterness or despair. Instead, see it as a stage being built, plank by plank, stone by stone. Every heartbreak is part of the structure. Every injustice is part of the design. And one day, when God unveils his plan, you will see that the stage was never for your humiliation. It was for your restoration. And when he raises you, it will not be in secret. It will be before the very eyes of those who thought your pain would destroy you. The same voices that mocked you will be silenced, not by your words, but by the undeniable evidence of God's hand upon your life. There is a unique sting that comes not only from being hurt, but from being laughed at in your pain. To be mocked when you are vulnerable, to have your struggles turned into the subject of someone else's amusement, this is cruelty of the deepest kind, and yet many of you have tasted it. The very people who should have lifted you chose instead to ridicule you. They used your weakness as entertainment, your failures as fuel for gossip. They looked at your brokenness and declared with their words or their silence, "You will never rise from this." But here is the marvelous truth. God will not only restore you, he will restore you in such a way that those who mocked you will see it with their own eyes. It is not enough for him to lift you in secret. He delights in showing his power openly, so that the mouths that once ridiculed you are silenced by awe. This is not to feed your pride, but to magnify his glory. For when he raises you, it will be undeniable that it was not your strength but his. Think of Hannah, mocked by her rival Peninnah for being barren. Day after day, her pain was turned into humiliation. But Hannah poured her tears before God, and in his timing he gave her Samuel, a son whose name and destiny could not be hidden. Peninnah's mockery was drowned out by the sound of Hannah's joy. The one who was ridiculed became the one who was celebrated, and those who once despised her had no choice but to witness the faithfulness of God. This pattern runs through Scripture and through life. God allows the mockers to speak, not because he approves of their cruelty, but because their words become the backdrop against which his power shines brighter. The louder their laughter, the greater the silence when he acts. The more public their scorn, the more undeniable his restoration. Perhaps you have experienced this yourself. Perhaps people mocked your dreams, saying you would never succeed. Perhaps they laughed at your faith, telling you it was foolish to trust in God. Perhaps they even mocked your heartbreak, whispering that you were weak for still hoping, still believing. But let me assure you, every word they spoke has been heard in heaven, and every laugh they released has been recorded. They will not have the final word. God's justice is poetic. He not only heals the wound, but uses the wound as the very place of your testimony. He not only lifts you up, but lifts you up in view of those who said you never would. It is not vengeance. It is vindication. It is the declaration that you were never abandoned, never forgotten, never forsaken. Imagine Joseph standing before his brothers, no longer the helpless boy they sold, but the ruler of a nation. Imagine the silence that fell upon them as they realized the one they had mocked was now the one holding the keys to their survival. This is the God you serve. He writes stories where the tables turn so completely that those who once ridiculed you are forced to honor you. So do not fear the mockery of today. It is temporary noise. It may pierce you now, but in the end it will serve as the echo that makes your victory sound louder. The very people who laughed will one day be silent witnesses as God lifts you higher than they ever imagined. There is a heaviness that comes when we carry the thought of revenge. The heart whispers, "If only I could make them feel what they made me feel. If only I could return the pain they gave me." And for a moment, It may seem like holding on to that thought gives you power, but in reality it is not power, it is poison. The desire for vengeance does not heal, it corrodes. It does not lift you, it chains you to the very people who wounded you. That is why God, in his wisdom, has declared, "Vengeance is mine." It is not a suggestion, but a release. He is saying, "This weight is not for your shoulders. This justice is not for your hands. Give it to me." For vengeance is not simply about punishing wrong. It is about balancing scales that only the creator of those scales can balance. He alone sees the full story. He alone knows the depths of motives, the unseen consequences, the ripple effects that extend beyond the moment of betrayal. Your vision is too small for vengeance, but his vision is perfect. Consider this. If you were to take matters into your own hands, you might strike too soon or too harshly. Your anger might blind you, causing you to do harm that is greater than the harm done to you. Or perhaps you might strike too lightly, failing to see the depth of the wrong. But God's justice is never too heavy, never too light. It is precise, it is holy, it is eternal. Think of David once again. Twice he had the opportunity to kill Saul, the very man who hunted him like an animal. Twice his men urged him to take vengeance into his own hands, and twice David said no because he understood that vengeance belongs to God. By refusing to stay in his own hands, he allowed God's timing and God's justice to prevail. And when Saul's reign ended, it was clear to all that it was not David's sword, but God's hand that brought it to a close. This is the freedom you must embrace. To release vengeance is not weakness, it is strength. It takes courage to let go of the need to strike back. It takes faith to trust that God will do what he has promised. And in that release you find peace. Your mind no longer burns with endless rehearsals of what they did. Your heart no longer plots how to make them pay. Instead, you rest, knowing the Judge of heaven and earth has taken your case into his court. And when he acts, it will not only bring justice to them, it will bring healing to you, because you will know that justice came not from your bitterness, but from his righteousness. And that makes all the difference. For vengeance in human hands breeds cycles of pain, but vengeance in God's hands ends cycles and brings closure. So, my friend, lay it down. Release the burden. You were never created to carry it. You were created to trust. Let God be the avenger, and you be the one who keeps walking, keeps loving, keeps rising. In time you will see that his way is not only higher, it is far more satisfying than anything you could have orchestrated on your own. Suffering is a strange and terrible teacher. To the one who endures it in faith, it becomes a furnace that purifies the soul, stripping away pride, deepening compassion, and drawing the heart nearer to God. But to the one who inflicts suffering on others, it becomes a witness against them, a testimony that cries out before heaven, condemning their cruelty and sealing their fate. You know this truth already in your bones. When you walked through the valley of pain, something changed in you. You discovered depths of resilience you did not know you had. You found yourself praying with a sincerity that ease and comfort could never have taught you. You felt the hollowness of worldly things and the sweetness of God's presence in ways that only suffering could reveal. Though the fire burned you, it did not consume you. It refined you. You walked out of it with a soul stronger, clearer, and more radiant than before. But what of those who caused the suffering? While your tears were watering the soil of your growth, their actions were sowing seeds of judgment. Every cruel word, every betrayal, every deliberate act of harm was a brick in the prison of their own making. They may appear to flourish for a season, but their success is hollow, their joy counterfeit, because their cruelty is not forgotten by God. What refines you condemns them. Think of Pharaoh in Egypt. The more he afflicted God's people, the more they multiplied. Their suffering became their strength. But for Pharaoh, every act of oppression was a nail in the coffin of his own downfall. The very suffering that refined the Israelites was the same suffering that condemned Pharaoh and his army to destruction in the Red Sea. Or consider Daniel in the lion's den. His suffering refined his faith. It proved his trust in God was unshakable. But the very men who schemed to harm him were later cast into the same den, condemned by the trap they had set for another. Suffering divides like a sword. For the righteous it is purification. For the wicked it is condemnation. This is why you must not despise your suffering. Though it felt unbearable at times, though it seemed unjust and cruel, it was shaping you in ways nothing else could. It softened your heart toward others who are hurting. It taught you patience, humility, and dependence on God. You carry within you now a wisdom that only comes through fire, and that wisdom is priceless. Meanwhile, those who caused your pain are not escaping. Their laughter was short-lived, their triumph was temporary. For every tear they mocked, for every moment they took advantage of your vulnerability, they were writing their own judgment. God will not allow their cruelty to vanish into the air. It clings to them like a shadow, a testimony against them, until the day his justice falls. Here lies the great paradox. Suffering will not have the same outcome for all. For you it will be a crown, for them it will be chains. For you it will be evidence of faith refined, for them it will be evidence of sin exposed. The same fire that purifies gold consumes straw. And so, what you endured will one day stand as proof of your strength and their guilt. So, my friend, lift your head. Do not let your suffering define you as a victim. See it as the furnace where God forged your strength. And know this, the same suffering that was meant to destroy you has already condemned those who caused it. Their cruelty cannot escape the eye of the one who turns pain into glory. Peace is one of the rarest treasures in this world. You cannot buy it with money, nor secure it with power, nor guarantee it through human approval. True peace does not come from the absence of storms, but from the assurance that God is with you in them, and that his justice will prevail when all else seems broken. When you have been wronged, your peace feels stolen. The betrayal replays in your mind like a scene on repeat. The harsh words echo in the silence of your nights. The injustice burns in your chest, until even moments of quiet are filled with unrest. This is the design of cruelty. It robs you twice, first in the act itself, and second in the memory that haunts you. But God has not left you defenseless. His justice is not only about punishing the wicked, it is about restoring your peace. How does he do this? First, he assures you that nothing was unseen. Every wrong that gnaws at your heart has already been recorded by his hand. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not forgotten. When you place your trust in him, that assurance alone begins to calm the storm inside. For the soul finds peace not in answers, but in knowing that someone greater is in control. Second, God's justice restores peace by silencing the lies. Those who wrong you often try to rewrite the story, to make themselves look innocent and you appear guilty. They twist the truth until even you begin to question your memory. But when God acts, he exposes what was hidden. He vindicates your name, not through argument, but through undeniable evidence of his favor on your life. When others see the blessing upon you, the lies fall flat, and your spirit breathes again in freedom. Third, his justice restores peace by shifting the weight from your shoulders to his. Think of how heavy it feels to carry the need to prove yourself, to defend your worth, to make things right. That burden was never yours. God says, "Cast your cares upon me, for I care for you." And when you release it, your soul feels lighter, your heart rests. You discover that peace is not the result of controlling outcomes, but of trusting the one who controls all. Consider the disciples on the stormy sea. The waves threatened to swallow them, but when Jesus spoke, "Peace, be still," the storm bowed. That is how God restores peace in your life, not by pretending the storm never existed, but by demonstrating his authority over it. The same God who calmed the sea will calm the turmoil in your spirit, not by erasing your past, but by rewriting its ending. And finally, his justice restores peace by turning your pain into purpose. Nothing settles the soul like seeing meaning in your suffering. When the hurt that once weighed you down becomes the very platform that lifts you, your heart begins to rest in the knowledge that it was not wasted. Peace comes when you realize the betrayal was not the end of your story, but the beginning of a greater one, written by God's own hand. So do not let bitterness rob you any longer. Trust him. Rest in the truth that his justice is not only coming, it is already working within you. And as it unfolds, you will discover that peace is not something you have to fight for. It is something he gives, freely and fully, to those who dare to place their hurt in his hands. My friend, if you take nothing else from these words, let it be this: God has not forgotten you. The pain you endured, the betrayal you suffered, the injustice you carried in silence, it was all seen, all recorded, and all held in the heart of the one who promises to bring justice. He has seen every hidden wound, and not one of them will go unanswered. What others dismissed or ignored, God himself treasures and will honor. The delay you feel is not denial. It is the careful timing of a perfect judge who allows no injustice to escape his hand. Your pain has not been wasted. It is becoming the very platform for your restoration, the soil where your testimony will grow, and the stage upon which God will reveal his glory in your life. And the same people who mocked you, who laughed at your suffering, who doubted your worth, they will one day witness your rise, not because you sought vengeance, but because you trusted the one who says, "Vengeance is mine." In this waiting, your suffering has refined you. It has deepened your faith, softened your heart, and prepared you for greater things. But for those who caused it, it has already condemned them before the throne of justice. And in the end, God's justice will not only correct the wrong, it will restore your peace. The storm inside you will be calmed. The lies against you will be silenced. The weight you carried will be lifted. So lift your head. Do not be afraid. Do not let bitterness poison your soul. Trust that the God who saw you in the darkest valley is the same God who is leading you into light. His justice is coming, his restoration is certain, and his peace is already yours. And when the story is finished, all will know. The same people who brought you pain became the evidence of God's power, and the same wounds that once defined you became the testimony of his justice. So walk forward with courage. Leave vengeance in his hands. Rest in his promises. For God will bring justice, not in secret, not in silence, but in a way that all will see, and none will be able to deny.